right, so hi everyone. I'm excited. This is our third of the four webinars in this series. So the last webinar really focused on two of the five motivational interviewing skills needed in order to be able to effectively implement and communicate with our participants using this technique. So those were open-ended questions that really gave participants the floor to be able to tell their story or to at least feel like we're wanting more information than what a lot of closed questions, which feels a little bit more like interrogation, can give us. And then we also covered giving affirmations, which build confidence, belief in oneself, builds people's self-esteem. And so affirmations really help people to feel good about uh, their ability to make changes, and I think help them gives them the confidence that they're going to be able to achieve that. So, but since our last session, which was a couple weeks ago, I have received a couple emails that revealed some are just talking to me about different ways that people have either implemented some of these techniques in other aspects of their life or had an idea, a great idea that would enable all of you to maybe get staff to be the other staff who aren't in this session to begin to understand what it is that we're covering and sort of lay the groundwork for helping teach them motivational interviewing. So I wanted to take a minute to invite one of the people who did share and give her the floor, and that is Lisa Marcusic. And I'm going to have Lisa, if you could go ahead and unmute and talk about your implementation idea. I said it was a great idea.
Sure. Thanks, Jody. So we just wanted to share here at Workforce. We really enjoyed the training so far, and we just thought it would be great to get a head start sharing some of what we've learned. So we started a couple weeks ago. We shared through email to all of our staff just a tip takeaway of the week. Like it was very short, sweet, easy to implement. Um, Easy to remember. So we started with tip number one. We emailed it to all of our staff, and that was regarding the praise versus affirmation. Um, we just touched on trying to remember to use you instead of I. And then we gave an example of instead of saying, I'm so proud of you for obtaining your, say, CDL license, instead say, you really were dedicated to the program. So real easy, easy to implement. We sent out a tip number two, which was, again, easy to remember try to use challenge instead of the word barrier. So just sharing just one tip each week for our staff. Sometimes staff, co-workers, they go to trainings and we don't hear anything of what they learned. So we thought, why not share it, get a head start, and see just if they can easily remember just one thing. So we just wanted to share that with Jody, and then she suggested we share it with everybody.
So anybody
Thank you.
have any questions for Lisa on how that works? Like, did you get any staff that say great idea or get pushback on
Well,
that?
no, a couple said, thank you, some didn't respond, but but we just, it's easy. It's easy to use.
Anybody have anything that they want to ask Lisa? Well, thanks a lot for sharing that. I think it's a
Oh,
great
sure.
idea. And I think that it like what you're saying is it lays the foundation. So then later, like they already have little stepping
Right.
stones to build upon. So, well, I'm going to move on then to what we're going to talk about this session. And one of the things that I want to do is, in a sense, it's going backwards a bit because I want to get us started. I thought that I wanted to begin with an exercise that sort of pulls together some of the concepts that we've been talking about up to this point. What I think that this does, I mean, in some ways, I talk about the theory of motivational interviewing. I mean, some of it's skills, but like people have to talk about change, and you need to be empathetic and compassionate, and so all of that in terms of the spirit. And then you also have the actual skills. So what I'm going to ask you to do is I am going to give you a moment, and I will actually time myself. I'll give you a minute to read this case. It's a case study in green, and the block in green. And then what I'm going to do is I want to ask questions, or so we'll either unmute or you'll use chat to answer a couple questions. So I only put A, B, C, D. I want you to pretend this is a case note, and I put A, B, C, D just for ease for us talking about it. That the A, B, C, D would not actually appear in the case note. So I'll shut up and give you a minute to read over this. I have a timer set. So it's been about a minute. Hopefully you could read through that. So my question is, based on what we've learned so far about motivational interviewing, what are the missteps that you see in this particular case note? You can also include, I have on the screen, discussions of things that maybe just shouldn't appear in a case note, that maybe have nothing to do with motivational interviewing. But there are some actual errors in this case note that relate to what we've been talking about in terms of MI. So, you can use chat, you can unmute. What's your what do you see that's going on in this case note? No empathy. Monique says for the customer situation. Um, uh, Excellent. Definitely telling the participant what to do instead of allowing the decision to be hers. And I think that you really see that in step D, as in dog. I explained and told her that she can't put her life on hold, that this is what she needs to do. And so taking all decision making away from her. What else? Let's see. The customer was characterized with a generalization instead of just documenting the missed meeting. And so what I'm seeing there is it to me, it's that whole thing that we talked about as one of the roadblocks. It's right in letter A. Where you say Denise is a procrastinator. We're already labeling her, we're calling her something. And you're right. It's like it's an overgeneralization instead of documenting where is it that that Denise ever didn't follow through. Like let the reader say, "Oh wow, it seems sort of like she procrastinates." I, as a career coach, should probably not say that. Anybody else? Jessica is saying authority. That like acting a little bit like I think the case the case manager, the career coach, is acting like I'm more expert than you on your life, so I'm going to tell you how to live your life. Lots of judgment. Exactly. There were no open-ended questions to allow expression, and then seems like the career planner does not have a lot of positive encouragement for her. I actually, in reading it or writing it, I guess, is that does a career coach even like her? Like I just get this sense that like she's frustrated with her, like she's a procrastinator and didn't complete the My Next Step activities that she had agreed to do. I can just hear this negative thing in my head. So I see that, and the opportunity for any kind of encouragement whatsoever totally missed. So I want to explain something that I did. And if it's a case note, there's too much detail regarding the boyfriend instead of indicating that the customer may just have some personal stress. I totally agree. I think that that information is confidential. It's something that Denise has told you because trust has been built. She didn't expect that was going to go into a case note and like have other people read it. It's way too much detail and uses I instead of you. Yes. So anyway, what I want to show you is that within that is that, or talk about, is that so I had that case and last year I taught a year long training, and a part of it was on motivational interviewing, part of it was actually on case notes, but this was a an activity that I had them read, and they had to rewrite that case note using all of the techniques that we've talked about. And so these, what I'm showing you here, are partial. And these were written by career coaches based on this case. And like, let's review these statements. Notice as we review quickly the bold-faced underlined words. I explained to her that she needed to finish this by next week. I advised her to try to do the My Next Step activity. These were all actual quotes from the homework that I got. I recommended that rather than pausing everything, she consider engaging in this activity. I advised her to calm down. I told her to do it this week so that we could talk about it. And I explained to Denise that sometimes problems make our lives challenging. However, it's important to continue to focus on our goals. I think like reading between the lines, and you already hit it in the first, I think in the first case note on the last slide, is that it seems like to me the case manager has totally, the career coach has totally tried to take control over the situation. So what happens is it's like that kind of feeling then builds resistance because people, as I've said in prior sessions, people don't like being told what to do, and they don't like really want somebody else directing their lives. And so in this case, it looks like the coach is in control rather than the participant. So what I did was to just give you an example, not perfection perhaps, but it's what I did was looked at how can we reduce resistance. And one of the things that we've recently covered was asking open-ended questions to give control. And so instead of I explained to her, I asked Denise what the pros and cons were of moving ahead with My Next Step. She said that focusing on her career pathway would take her mind off personal issues. So now Denise is in control rather than me being in control. And the open-ended questions are what led us there. I advised her to do this. Instead, I asked Denise what she wanted to do. And by the way, if Denise said, right now, my mind is not in this, like I'm really focused on, what's going on personally for me between my boyfriend and my mother. And what I'd like to do is just take another week to just, I don't know, chill or, get back in the swing of things, then it's totally up to Denise, and I'd give her that week, or she might say she wants to do it. I recommended rather than pausing my rewrite, I asked Denise how she felt about pausing her career decision making. Would delaying make her, it should be feel better or feel worse? And so, present that back to her. I advised her to calm down. I asked Denise what technique might work for her to relieve stress. And Joel, I agree. Has telling someone to calm down ever actually worked? I think no. Or so I told her to do what to do this week. Told her to do this week so we could talk about it, to do it this week so we could talk about it at our next meeting. And rather, I asked Denise if it made sense to her to do it this week so we could talk about it in our next meeting. So again, what I just wanted to show you was how I think that what we're talking about totally applies to the theoretical applies to the actual situations. And my one last step is what I did was just to show you this. I went ahead and I just rewrote the whole case note, and notice in this that I left out all of that confidential information. And so because last time I only put this on because last time somebody in the training asked about like when you ask open-ended questions and you're trying to take notes because I have to be able to write about that and how hard that might be to keep good notes that track the conversation. I just want you to notice that much of what was written on the red side didn't need to be there anyway. So, and I really believe notes have to be written in such a way so someone else could pick them up. Like if I got sick and I'm in a car accident, I had a death in my family, I can't go to work, somebody else has to pick up the note, then I want to write it in such a way that somebody else knows exactly what to do with Denise. So, notice I just summarize it with personal problems. I don't want to do any of the name calling. So I do say she didn't complete it, but hopefully it sounds objective. I asked her if she wanted me to explain how it works. She said yes. I explained it and asked her how it might benefit her. So again, sort of an open-ended dialogue with her in control. And then she agreed to do my next step by our next meeting, and we'll discuss the results. So I think that again, that to me is a piece of motivational action or motivational interviewing in action. Make sense? You could nod. Okay. All right. So I will move on. So our the next skill then that I want us to look at is asking permission. So this is a skill that really isn't that hard to learn. It's more of, in my mind, it's a state of mind. If you adopt the philosophy of motivational interviewing and that whole spirit of motivational interviewing, then this is a skill that sort of just fits hand in glove. And so before we start on the actual skill, let's just do a little quick pre-test. So pretend that you're concerned about something that the participant tells you. So they're telling you some story and you have a concern about it. Before sharing your concern, should you do A, B, C, or D? Just basically, we haven't covered it, but what your intuition tell you is the answer in a motivational interviewing format. Yep, and I'm seeing on the answer thing, I think it's probably written in a pretty obvious way. It's you're going to ask permission, and if the participant needs to agree to hear your concern before you share it. If they don't agree that they want to hear it, so if I said, like, I have a little concern about what you just said, can I just take a minute to explain my concern? And they go, no, like, I don't want to hear it, or well, I've sort of already made up my mind. They act in any way at all that resists, then just move on because you're kind of, in a sense, you're wasting your breath if the participant doesn't want to hear it, or your teenager, or your husband, or your wife, or whoever doesn't want to hear it, then move on. So, but the issue is that from time to time, you are going to want to give people advice, maybe provide information to them about like various schools or labor market information. Maybe you want to talk about a specific topic. And so you are able to do that. All you have to do is ask permission before providing this information. So maybe you have a recommendation or advice. The issue is that we don't want to just start dispensing that advice. Ask permission. So when you ask permission, you're always keeping the participant in control. So again, you can give it if you ask, and then they say, yeah, that's fine. So only provide information or advice or express a concern if the participant, they can ask you to do it. They could say, like, what would you do? Or, I don't know, do you know the schools in the area that like do nursing or whatever? So they've asked. So now you have permission. Or if they don't haven't asked, then you're going to ask for permission. You want to be brief, relevant, and focused. And what does that mean? It means that you still don't have free reign to go on and on and on as much as you like. You want to be brief, and then give them this information and then get their initial reaction to the information that you've provided. So, what I want to know is, are they interested in even more information or more insights that I have? Or are they already, be aware, are they already showing signs of resistance? And other sessions we've talked about signs of they cross their arms, they lean back, they roll their eyes, they, you know, uh, expel air. You're always reading for those signs of resistance. So if they show those, arguing, interrupting, ignoring, any of that, stop. So if I say, I have an idea, if you're interested in hearing it, and they say no, then no means no. And then I say, no problem. And we go on. So full stop when there's resistance. And then what I always want to do is to like engage them in evaluating the information. So if I give them information, I want to say something, and I'll give you an example here in a second, but I'll say something like, is that helpful? Or what do you think about that? So I've got to throw it right back to them. But I think that, it's, if you've ever tried to give a teenager or really anyone advice, it's I think that people are like bombarded all the time with endless advice on, I don't know, like how they should act in school, parents, how they should raise their kids, how to pick a career. The like list goes on and on. And so that's why I think that if we're not keeping them in control, letting them control what information that we give, again, we're just wasting our breath. So we can give information just in careful, measured ways. So a good way of doing this to kind of memorize and get in the pattern of is ask, offer, ask. So it's like ask, I have an idea if you're open to hearing it. The participant says, go ahead. Then I can share my information, again, being brief, being relevant, and moving on. And then ask, what are your thoughts on this? Because I think sometimes we forget that, like, we can't make people change. And I know that when I forget to do this, my nephew, who's graduating soon from college, um, I always want to give him advice. But I also know that when I forget to keep him in control and to ask him if he wants information, it actually makes it harder for him or any person to change. Why? Because we fall into persuading, we fall into convincing, information giving, pleading, arguing, threatening. And what they inevitably will do in response to that is actually argue against making the change. So then our efforts backfire. So what we want to do is ask, offer, ask. So when you ask permission, you're implicitly valuing them as people, and you're totally respecting their autonomy. So it gives them control. Then when we offer the information, whatever it is about schools or labor market information, again, I'll give you some examples. I want to say, like, what did you make of that? Or how does this fit or not fit for you? Or what are your thoughts about this? Does this impact your thinking at all? So it's another, in a sense, we're asking another open-ended question to get their feedback, because what we might think was a perfect fit, they might not think was a perfect fit. So check to see how it landed with them. So I'm giving you a few examples of how, like, asking for ways in which you can ask for permission. So, would it be all right if I, shared information, or I'd like to share a concern with you if you're open to that. Like I had a youth one time who was going to miss a week of nursing training because she wanted to go on vacation with her boyfriend and his family. And it's like, you cannot miss a week of nurses training. It's, just not really in the solution set. So, that is where, and I had other students, I mean, it was so easy to fall behind. I would want to share that as a concern, but again, I have to ask permission. So I'm wondering if I could ask for a couple minutes to provide you with some information. Notice that when you ask for permission, my experience has been, and it might not always be, hold to be true, but my experience is when you ask permission, 95% of the time, people say, yeah, sure, go ahead, because you're still keeping them in control. So it's not as though I don't get a lot of people who say, no, I don't want to hear it. Well, unless it's somebody who I've already violated this rule with before and they already know what I'm going to say. But in any case, it's like asking permission is the best tactic. And here's like, many, many different ways of being able to do that. So, and if they say no, we're going to respect that. So using chat, write down the letters of the items. So I've given you A, B, C, D, E. Write down the letters of the items that ask permission. So we can distinguish between the two approaches of barreling ahead or asking. And I am going to chat. In A, C, and E, and some say A and C. And then we're back to hmm. Right. Well, it seems that we absolutely know that B and D are out. I don't think that's going to work. And here's why is me taking over, which you guys have correctly seen. And I have information on how to create a budget. Here's a calendar and some workshop sheets to get you thinking. Yeah, absolutely. Nobody put those down. What I'm seeing is some people are putting E and some people are not putting E. A and C, everybody's getting right. But notice with E, I personally would put E as asking permission. I could refer you to our business services representative if you think that will be a help to you. So I have still turned it over to the participant and they say, I don't think that it would be that helpful. It's like we move on and they say, oh yeah, that sounds good. Then we can have that discussion. So I think E is also asking permission. What I want you to see in these examples that I wrote is that it takes very little time to ask permission, to ask for somebody's permission. I actually sat down with a stopwatch and I timed myself reading these aloud. And A took me 4.25 seconds, B took me 3.8 seconds, and E took me 5.29 seconds. I don't know why it took longer. It doesn't look that much longer, but it's even less if I just count the part of this statement where I'm actually asking permission. Would it be okay? Or in C, if that's all right with you, or in E, if you think that would be a help, it's even less. It's 1 or 2 seconds. So this process, that's my point, does not slow down our conversations meaningfully any more than saying please or thank you or you're welcome does in other situations. It's just always going back and thinking who is in control, who should be in control of this. So we're going to do a couple examples. And so we're going to apply this to a scenario. And so you can use chat. So Here's my scenario. Ralph comes into the program, can't decide what to do with his career. He doesn't have any ideas what he'd like to do. He knows he didn't love his last job and now he wants something different. So you were thinking about referring him to the local workforce center, which is probably you, but the part that does interest testing, because you think that might give you a place to start, might give him some answers. How do you state that in a way to Ralph that ask him permission before telling him your idea? So you can unmute, you can use chat, any way will work. Looking at my chat, you guys are all must still be typing. So Toby says, would you be interested in some resources that might help you? Christy, I know a place that can help you explore some new career options. Would it be okay if I gave you that information? Christy's actually more exactly asked permission. Toby, you're on the right track because you're asking, you're still asking. It's a little less I might say with yours, would you be interested in I have some resources if you're interested, and I think that I'm like just arguing semantics. It still works. Would you be open to an online interest survey? That might be a way. Would you like me to help you think this through? I have an idea if you're open to hearing it. I like that. There's a center that can help you with your interest and being able to explore. Would you like to hear more about that? Yeah, sure. Or no, I have referral information and that might assist you in making a decision. Would you be interested? Good. And I have a suggestion that might help you decide. Would you like to hear it? Excellent. You guys are on the right track. I'll show you mine. And then we're going to do another one. So mine is, I said, which sort of actually is going to jump ahead with reflective listening. It sounds like you aren't sure what's out there, what would be a good fit for you. I have some ideas for how you could start to figure that out if you're interested in hearing them. So the first sentence again is reflective listening. The second one is asking permission. So great. And now we're going to do one more. And that is asking permission, Sheila. So she wants to go to school for nursing, but she's not sure what schools in the area have nursing programs. She hasn't explored it, what exists or what the entrance requirements are. She just knows she wants to do nursing. How do you provide that information to her while asking permission? There is an eligible training provider list available. Would you like me to provide you with the list or more information on this? That's totally asking permission. My only hesitation or the thing I might change is recognizing that probably just people in the general public don't know what an eligible training provider list is. So I might say I know of places that have nursing available or a list of schools that do nursing. Would you like me to provide you with that? Good. You've given your career some serious thought. What a great affirmation, David. Would you like me to point out which schools in our area would be good for you to explore? Excellent. Let's hear at least one more. can I give you some information on schools in our area? Yep. Okay, good, James. And so here's again how I wrote it. I said, I do have information about schools in our area that have nursing programs. If that would be of interest to you, it might save you some time in your search. And so they agree. Now I can give it. And now I see another one, Sarah. Since you want to go to school for nursing, would you like me to give you a list of schools that you can choose to train in? Then we can talk about what you think. Excellent. And so, what I like about what all of you guys are saying is it's handing things over. I think that oftentimes, just in the interest of, I don't know, saving time or whatever, we do try to solve people's problems, give them information they didn't ask for, and then are kind of frustrated when they don't actually use it. So, my next question then is I've covered kind of the basics for asking permission. And let's see how I did in terms of explaining it. So here's my question. Why is asking permission before dispensing advice? Why is it important? Why is it powerful? And in case my cat is meowing at me, it's treat time. And he's not going to stop until I give him a treat, but it's going to be about an hour. So why is asking permission before dispensing advice? Why is it important? Why is it powerful? See, it keeps the participant engaged. It involves the customer in the assessment process. It gives power to them. Excellent. Gives them some control over their experience, gives them autonomy. And so they're making the decisions, and you want the person to be alert and ready to receive the information. Yeah, exactly. You're shifting the control of the whole plan to them. So they never should feel like they're doing something because we want them to do it. They're always doing it because it would be good for them. So here's, I did create a list. You could probably tell for those of you who are doing the homework, this just seems like a perfect kind of homework question. It's a respectful way to share information with another person. Again, respects, as you guys were saying, their autonomy. It allows the receiver to stay in control. You guys had that, and to be empowered. I think it also builds trust and rapport because it says, I totally respect you. It emphasizes the person's choice. And if the participant agrees to hear your advice or information, then they're not going to be resistant to the information because they're the ones who told you to go ahead. So, asking permission is our third skill. And we are going to now move to our fourth skill, and that is reflective listening. So, there's so much that we could talk about in terms of reflective, just regarding listening in general. Like given the format that we have, and we're not all together, I decided, again, like I have with most other things, teach by examples so that we can sort of work through like examples rather than talking about it at the 30,000 foot level. But I do want to make a couple comments and observations about listening. And one of them is I think it's interesting. I don't know if anybody else finds this interesting, but although it is such an essential skill at work, at school, in relationships, in friendships, really all aspects of life, we get really no real formal training in listening skills. Like, I think about it in grade school, in middle school, in high school. We take writing, we take classes, we have classes on reading, we take public speaking, but we almost get no training on listening. It's as though there's a belief that you're born knowing how to listen. So we don't get training or practice on listening skills during our developmental years. So if you think about it at school, we are rewarded when we do well at reading. when we do well at speaking and writing, but really we receive little direct praise for listening. And like oftentimes, I'm thinking only like in kindergarten and maybe first grade, where there would there be any comment on listening on my report card. And mostly my teachers would always say I talk too much, and probably not don't listen to them. But yet it's the most oftentimes used channel for learning, really more than reading, more than writing, more than speaking. So this chart that I put together shows you how many years we get of learning each mode of communication compared to the percentage of time that we actually use that type of communication. So I don't know, it just seems to me that our formal training in communication is backwards. So as a result, although we hear, we aren't very good at listening. So listening, you maybe get a half a year, and yet 40% of our learning is really based on listening. So going back then to our chart, how to respond. Remember, we're all about change talk. So I'm putting up a slide that we've used, I think, in the first section, the second, and now we're finishing it off here. Our goal is to evoke change talk. How? We ask open-ended questions, and we also listen for spontaneous change talk. When somebody says, I just got to do something different, or, I need to get a better job, or, that just spontaneous. Or through a question that we ask. So the coach will respond to change talk by making an affirmation. That's one option. And the second option is to use active listening or reflective listening. So in my example, which is in that third box, the change talk, the participant says, if I help my daughter now, she will do better at school as she grows. An affirmation is you recognize that your influence can help your daughter. Reflective listening, and you'll see, I mean, I think the difference is subtle, but there is a difference. You want to do what I'm hearing you say is you want to do what you can for your daughter now so that you can give her a firm foundation for the future. So when somebody makes change talk, you have two options: affirmation or reflective listening. So there is a difference between listening and hearing. Hearing's a function, listening is a desire. So if you hear and you hear well, you're going to hear everything, but that doesn't mean that you're actually paying attention to everything. In fact, occasionally my husband, he'll say to me, like, did you hear me? And sometimes I have to say, like, I totally heard you. I mean, like, I heard the words, but I wasn't really listening. And so, there are just so many barriers to listening, and I'm not going to enumerate them all. I'll give you a few examples. Well, one is the difference between the rate that someone can speak is about 125 words per minute, but our brains can process 800 words per minute. So that gap allows your brain to side process to take up the slack. So that means I'm not totally listening to the person who's speaking. And then our mood, stress, physical health, prejudice, bias, even creature comfort. I mean, like temperature. But when I do workshops, if it's too hot in a room, it's too cold in the room. You got to fix that because people can't listen, and they can't participate if they're not comfortable. So when you want to really listen, you have to take it to this higher level, and you have to immerse yourself to really focus on what the speaker is saying. And you really cannot be superficial about it. And I just feel like if they're going to take the time, or participant is going to take the time to talk to us, we should take the time to listen to what they have to say. And so the type of listening, just a quick comment that we're using is it's counseling, but it has several names. Some people call it reflective listening. Sometimes they call it active listening. Sometimes it's called empathetic listening, but all are referring really to the same skill, listening to the message that the speaker is trying to send. So it really involves like fully concentrating on what's being said rather than just passive hearing. The key to active listening, empathetic listening, reflective listening is being able to repeat or paraphrase what the speaker has said, because that ensures that what I hear or what I think I heard is what the speaker, the message the speaker actually thought or felt that they were sending. I know if I know that the next thing that I have to do is paraphrase what the person just said to make absolutely certain that I understand, then my focus is going to be on the speaker and what message they're trying to communicate. But because sometimes you can think that you heard what they said, but you can't be sure unless you double check by repeating what you think you heard. So, like, I think a place that we all do this is when people give directions. If somebody gives you directions, we always repeat them back to make sure that you understand, because we know that communication is kind of inexact. So basically, what we're trying to do is capture the essence of the message. So I'm going to show you a couple examples where I think we're not actively listening. And then we'll move into some examples where I give you an opportunity to pick and write. So here's one, and I think I use this in the stand-up training, but I wanted it to be in the handouts that you're getting. And that's where a participant comes in and they say something like, I heard that you would get me a job. And I use that just like I hate the word barrier. This is another thing. It's just a pet peeve because people say, I heard that you will get me a job. And what we want to do, what we're doing is reacting to the fact that we have heard that 1,000 times. And so we don't want them to have the wrong impression. So our response is, we don't get you a job, you get your own job. Or we don't get you a job, we teach you how to get a job. And so we're reacting. I think we're reacting in an inappropriate way. We're reacting it's an emotional response because we've heard this so many times, and that leads to this overreaction on our part. And then what we're doing in this short example is correcting the person instead of trying to understand what they're really saying. I think that makes people feel uncomfortable, makes them feel cautious about what they're saying. Maybe they feel like somebody misled them. Maybe they're embarrassed. It shuts down communication. So let's look at an alternative way that uses more of the reflective listening. And so this is reflective listening. I heard that you could get me a job or whatever, could pay for my schooling. So getting a job or going to school is of interest to you. So that's reflective. I just repeated back what I think I heard them say. Notice that the coach is trying to understand rather than react. So we paraphrase what we think they're saying, and there are advantages to doing this. I put them up on the side. One, it helps us to understand what others are thinking, what they're feeling, what they're trying to convey. It shows that we're actually listening. Sometimes what we hear is not exactly what the participant or the speaker meant to say or imply. And so when I repeat back what I think I heard, they get this opportunity to correct what either what they said or what I heard. Sometimes people say a thing, but that's not what they meant. And sometimes I hear a thing and that's not what they meant. So there's this opportunity to correct. But I also think it strengthens the bonds between people because it shows that I respect you and I am totally willing to try to understand. So I think reflective listening really does build relationships. And then why is it important to use? Because I think common reactions to being listened to, I have up on the screen. I think one of the ones in the second column on the right, 2/3 of the way down, it makes people want to come back because it makes people want to talk more. They feel hopeful, comfortable, relaxed. I think nothing hurts more than this sense that someone isn't really listening to what we have to say. I mean, people complain about this all the time. Parents complain about their children that they don't listen. Children complain about their parents. Supervisors complain about their workers. Workers complain about their supervisors. Even friends who are like mostly reliable sources sometimes are just too busy to listen to what it is we have to say. So, like, imagine coming home from like a day at work or you were at a conference or something, and you're excited to share what has happened. And as you're telling your partner how it went, he falls asleep while you're talking. Like I'm actually using that example, and I would like to say it's like it's not real, but that's totally real. My husband cannot stay awake past like 8 o'clock, but it makes you feel like hurt, makes you feel a little betrayed. And so it's just it makes you not, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that. It makes you not want to talk more because people want to be understood. And that's why finding someone who really listens, why it is so powerful. Being listened to means that we're being taken seriously and that our ideas and our feelings, they really matter. So I think a listener's empathy, just trying to understand what we're saying, builds that bond of understanding and brings us all these positive reactions listed above. So we're going to look at a couple examples of how to do it. And so I've given you a scenario and given you 5 possible answers. And by the way, my cat is back. What is the reflective listening response to I'm uncertain about anyone other than myself or family watching my children? I think I'm seeing it. Everybody is getting it right. E. So it seems that the idea of entrusting your children to someone else, someone unfamiliar, makes you uneasy. Exactly. Let me show you what's wrong with the other answers. Even though nobody got or chose the other answers, although I think sometimes it's like what I would guess on a quiz might be different than what I would actually say. I guess that can happen. But like if you look at A, have you never allowed someone else to care for your children at all? I think it sounds kind of snarky. It sounds challenging, like I don't believe you. And so that is going to create resistance. By doing so, not letting somebody watch your children, you might be preventing your children from experiencing the advantages of interacting with their peers. That's totally judgmental. C is taking charge. It is providing information that the client didn't ask for and doesn't really even get at what the client is trying to express. I didn't ask permission to launch into that information. Now, what I might be able to say is, would it be helpful to you to know what studies have shown about children who go to daycare or after school programs compared to those who haven't? And if they say, yeah, I'd be interested in what studies have to say, then they've given permission and I could go into that. Otherwise, not go in there. I enrolled my children in daycare and they adapted well. What's wrong with this one? That's called diverting because we're no longer talking about the participant anymore. We're talking about me, or we're talking about the career coach. So it's sort of like it reminds me of like when you were young and maybe complaining to your parents because you were standing at the bus stop and it was cold. It was actually really, really cold this morning. We had frost and freeze warnings. uh, And it's like, oh, it's so cold and the bus is always so late. And you guys have probably all heard this from your own parents when they'd go, well, when I was your age, I had to walk to school, like, uphill both ways. And I had cardboard in my shoes, if they even had a pair of shoes. But what I want you to notice is it's diverting. We're no longer talking about you and your experience at the bus stop and how cold it was. We're now talking about our parents' experience. And so that's diverting, and diverting is not listening. And so E is the reflective response as you guys got. Let's do another one. I haven't worked before at a real job. I doubt anyone would hire me. What is the listening response? And let's see. Hmm. Well, I can't right now. All right, I'm seeing mixed responses. I'm seeing A's and B's. I will tell you, there's only one right answer. Okay. Okay, then B. Hey, no, no. I'm sorry. My cat has now jumped up and is trying to walk on the keyboard. Get. Go. Okay, sorry. Okay. B is more reflective. Exactly. So, let me show you. I haven't worked at a real job. I doubt anyone would hire me. What kind of job are you interested in? Notice you just diverted in A to it's to a new topic. What the person was talking about was their own doubts about employers hiring them. Yeah, the cat's really not sure I'm listening. He knows I'm not. I can't give the kitty a treat. I'd love to, James, but the treats are upstairs. And it's a whole process. They have to be counted out. I have two cats. You have to put it down at exactly the same time. It's a process, and I've spoiled them. Anyway, A is diverting to this to a new topic. And so notice that that's where I was saying one time, or back when we were talking about closed questions versus open questions. Closed questions lead people in the direction that the coach wants to go, not the participant. The participant I think is saying something else. I mean, what I could say if I wanted to use an open-ended question on this, I haven't worked at a real job. I doubt anyone would hire me. Is I could say, can you talk a little bit more about that? Or can you talk a little bit more about why you think an employer would not hire you, and like get them to talk about whatever their fear is. In my example here, B is the empathetic response. You're thinking that employer would not hire someone who doesn't have work experience. And it sounds like that's making you a little nervous to try. Notice I could, after B, no, I don't want to even say that. I could go to A. I mean, if you were to look for jobs, what would you, well, what kind would you be interested in? But I want to reflect back what I think I heard before I take the next step. C is, which nobody said, taking charge sorry. And at your age, not working at a real job will be a red flag to an employer. It's going to make it tougher to find something that's a critical response. And so obviously one that we wouldn't want to use. So I'm giving you another cheat sheet. And the cheat sheet is of openings. And so you feel it sounds like. So what I hear is that you're wondering if an employer would hire you. or hires people who don't have work experience. So, what I hear you saying, this is what I'm hearing. Please correct me if I get this wrong. Let me make sure I understand. All of those are good statements to start a reflective listening statement. So, I'm going to put the cheat sheet up, but we're going to work through a few examples. So, what is your reflective listening response to? I think about going to school and getting some skills, but I really need to get a job right away. I know that unless I get some skills, I won't get a job that I really like and that will pay me well. So, you will either you can unmute or use chat. What would be a good reflective listening response?
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. I figured rather than try to write it all in the chat that I'll just come on.
Yay.
So I am thinking that I would go with repeating back to them the one that says, "This is what I'm hearing. Please correct me if I'm wrong," and kind of just reiterate what they're saying so that I'm sure that we're on the same page before I move forward.
Okay. So now let me make you go right. So, okay. So let me make sure that I understand. This is
Mhm.
what I hear. Correct me if I get this wrong. And now summarize that.
And then I would just say, am I hearing that you are uneasy about returning to work because you feel that maybe you're not qualified, or is there some other reason that you're feeling the uneasiness?
Okay. All right. And good. And thank you so much for unmuting.
You're
Thank
welcome.
Yay. Yeah, and then David, I hear you say that you need a job, but you're worried about your current skills, and that might lead to something that's less ideal for you. It sounds like you feel like you won't be able to get a good job with your current skills. That's what Toby said. By the way, all of these, like in a sense, everything becomes right because you were repeating back what you think you heard. And the participant has the opportunity to say, no, that's not what I said, or that's not what I meant, or but it's like that shows I'm this somebody had written on here, the struggle is real. I really am trying to hear you. So you feel, Lisa says, so you feel torn between school and obtaining immediate employment. And they're like, yeah, because like I need the money, but I know I need to do something else. Or it sounds like your urgent need is a job and you're considering some training for a career that you are interested in to meet a long-term goal. Or I hear you say that you need additional skills and or training in order to earn money. Let me know if this isn't correct, or let me know if I got that right. Um, and I hear you say that you need additional skill. Oh, I just did that one. I thought a new one came up. Okay. All right. I'm gonna have you guys do another. I'll show you how I framed it. But I said, as you see it, getting a job is your highest priority right now. Like that's what I heard. Yet in the back of your mind, you're wondering if learning some skills might help you to get a higher paying job that you might like better. And then hear what they have to say. So in this, what I'm trying to do, and you guys did, is repeat back what we think they're saying The participant can correct you. They can add more to the conversation. They can explain it in more detail, or maybe, they get a chance to restate what they really meant. So what we're really trying to do is listen to hear the essence of what they're trying to communicate. Because again, think of how good it feels when someone listens to us, to you, and just tries to take the time to understand. So here's another one, and I will put that up. And my cheat sheet is there as well. I want to get a better job and get ahead in life. I'm pretty determined to make some better money and quit taking such low-paying jobs. And I will tell you, my cat is back. Should have given them their treats before the webinar started. Didn't think about it. Let me make sure I understand. You're thinking about school and getting some skills. I think, James, is that to the last one or to this one? So I want to get a better job and get ahead in life. I'm pretty determined to make some better money and quit taking such low-paying jobs. You sound determined to get a better job. Are you open to some ideas? The first part, you sound determined to get a better job, is reflective listening. Are you open to some ideas? That would be a closed question. So you might want to turn that into a open question if that's the direction that you want to go. Like, you sound determined to get a better job. Talk to me about how you, like, what strategy might be useful, or you might employ to be able to get a better job, and throw it back to them. Um, Someone else. This is okay. So, Lisa, so you feel your current job is not paying what you need, and you're looking for options to increase your salary. Have you thought a little bit about what that looks like? What kind of things have you done so far? Up to the point that you're asking the question, Lisa, you're doing reflective listening, and then you've moved on to another skill, to that, some of the other aspects. But so you feel like your current job isn't paying what you need, and you're looking or thinking about your options to increase your salary. This particular one was a little tough. I feel like I would need more information to help reflect. Okay. That's good feedback. I'll make it harder. I maybe I do need to add more. Um,
Um, and just to kind of piggyback on that, what I wrote, because I kind of felt like I felt like if I tried to reflect, I would put some of my own like answers as to the reasoning. And, so I just thought that I would need to ask a little bit more questions,
okay.
open-ended questions on that before I can say, oh, and then
Before
kind of
you're
reflect.
able, like, and after you gather more information, then
Then
you'd be able
reflect.
to
Yeah.
paraphrase it
Because
back.
otherwise I might put my own spin as to the reasonings for that.
Right. Yep. I hear you. I actually, I'll jump ahead and show you, because it looks like maybe it was a struggle. Oh, wait, I have another one. This is what I'm hearing. Please correct me if I'm wrong. You're saying that you want to get a better job and get ahead. Yes. You seem motivated to hear some suggestions to getting a higher paying job. Would you be open to hearing this? You're combining asking permission with reflective listening, and that's fine. That's good. Um, and let's see. Nicole says, it sounds like your goal is to gain better job opportunities to help you better meet your financial needs. I think like that is an excellent summary, Nicole. So what I hear you saying is that you're focused on your future and making more money. And I hear you want a better job. Can you share with me what would, what that would, I'm sorry, there's something, what that would look like? Pay seems a part of it, but are you seeking more? So David, you've gone into asking more questions to get more information too. And okay, I will accept that maybe this one is too short, didn't give you enough information, but here's how I reframed it. I just said getting ahead in life is very important, or getting ahead is very important in your life. That's what I heard with I want to get a better job. I want to get a better job and get ahead in life. You'd like to find a career that is more financially rewarding. And so that sort of is my paraphrase of the second sentence. So, but I hear what you guys are saying in terms of more information would probably make it a little bit easier. So I think it's doable, but more information would give you more opportunities. So what I want to do is I'm gonna want to skip a few just for a second. So I'm coming back to that. But what I want to show you, I want to talk about that slide I just missed, although maybe I'll do it on the next webinar. But I want to show you our last of our motivational interviewing skills. So we've done open-ended questions, we've done affirmations, reflective listening, and I did the after asking permission, providing information or giving advice after asking permission. Then the last one is summarizing to emphasize change talk. And what is important in terms of summaries is summaries, first of all, are pretty easy. It's really just a form of reflective listening. Summaries are used to highlight important aspects of the discussion. So while you're talking with a participant and they make change talk, when people make change talk, for me, I want to write it down. I want to write that down because I know that, which I'll show you here in a second, but remember way back when I said, like, when you're going to do change talk, when somebody makes change talk, well, first of all, we're asking questions to evoke change talk. Then what we want to do is get people to increase the frequency of making change talk, because the more somebody makes change talk, the more likely they are to actually make the change. So I think I've used the example, the more I talk about starting an exercise program, the more likely I am to do it. So the reason that we want to take notes and write down any change talk that we hear is because now they have made change talk. So that's one time that they've said it, they've expressed it. Then in reflective listening, I repeated it back to them. So that's the second time that they've heard it and we've talked about it. And then when I make a summary statement, it's a third time that we're going to end up revisiting, talking about it. So you use summaries to highlight important aspects of the discussion and especially change talk. You also will use summaries to shift the direction of the conversation. Like sometimes the conversation just becomes stuck. And so I can summarize that part. So what I'm hearing you say is that you do want a better job. You know that financially where you're at right now isn't quite cutting it. And so, one of the things that we want to do is to explore what might be another, a good career option. And now I could change direction and say, let me just gather a little bit more information about, and then maybe it's about challenges they face in their life or something else that is coming up, that has come up. So you use them to shift direction. And you use summaries kind of early and throughout the session. Summaries are not just at the end of a conversation, but we will use it at the end to pull everything together. So when you're doing summaries, it's saying things like, let's make a checklist of where we're at. Let's review what we've talked about. Well, some of the important points that you made are, or this might be a really good time to review what we've discussed. What I'm hearing is the following things are important to you. And so, again, cover everything. And I like the last one, our time is running out because when you use motivational interviewing and you're using listening and you're asking open-ended questions, you're going to find that participants are much more likely to open up and they feel that relationship with you. But I know also we have time crunches. We got other people waiting. We have other meetings we have to go to. You might have a webinar you need to participate in. So to me, this is a good thing to say. Our time's running out, and I like to pull together what you've said so far. Let me know if I've missed anything important that we covered. So again, it's almost like that ask, offer, ask is you're always giving them an opportunity for input. So announce that you're about to summarize. Let me stop, summarize what we've talked about. These are the 4 steps. This might be a really good time to see where we're at. Include both sides of any ambivalence that they're feeling. Remember, ambivalence is where I could argue either side of a thing. You're not, as an example, you're not sure you want to be here today, but you came because your mother insisted on it. And so that's 2 sides of the coin. Summarize any change talk that you've heard. You think you do need to do something, but you still aren't sure what road to take. You know that you'd like to get a place of your own so you can be more independent of your mother. You're not really sure where to start, but you know that you do want a job. And so you could probably, in your own mind's eye, hear the other rest of the conversation and then invite the participant to correct anything that you missed. So what did I miss? Did I miss anything? And so again, it's always giving them power, giving them the floor. So here is so the structure, and here's an actual example. Let me stop, summarize what we've just talked about. You're not sure you want to leave construction because it's all you know. But at the same time, it's backbreaking, dangerous, and you aren't making enough money because the weather impacts when you can work and there's too much downtime. Now, if I'm summarizing, the participant should have said all that. That is not me adding like my beliefs about construction. They've said that. So, and notice that everything that is in that paragraph is actually change talk because it's all talking about what they don't like about their current situation. And we're trying to move them from that comfort zone to the learning zone. And you said you wanted to get more information about good paying jobs in the Annapolis area. That's where I live. I said I would help you reach out to the Workforce Center to see how they can help you to figure out a field that's right for you, or reach out to the business services people who know all about demands. Include any change talk. You'd like to learn about short-term training programs, and you said that this is a very high priority for you. You want to move quickly, and then our last thing, did I miss anything? So summarizing is fairly easy. If you understand reflective listening, I think that summarizing is just another form of reflective listening, except now we're doing reflective listening over the course of everything that we've talked about for some chunk of the time, if not for the whole meeting, if it is at the end. So let me ask this. I'll throw this out there, and we can go back to that other slide that I skipped. But what are some of the best things that you think might happen for your participants if you learned and implemented motivational interviewing? Because we've talked about all 5 of the skills. That they may express more clearly their needs. I agree, because also they're going to trust you more. So they're going to tell you, you're going to learn more. Taking ownership of their plan might increase their outcomes, which is going to impact performance. Because you're right, If I'm setting the outcomes and not them, then I think they're not sold on them. They're not. Sometimes people agree just to be agreeable, and they don't really agree with what like plan we want them to implement. So it really does have to come for them that they will feel empowered. Exactly. They'll be more committed to changing because they've taken ownership. Yep. And oh, I like what James is saying. I might understand their needs more. It's the more I can get them to talk, the more I'm going to be able to understand their perspective, where they're coming from, and what they want to get out of this. Excellent. Um, to help them feel more in control of their decisions. And by the way, we're going to talk about this. Probably it's when we're in the live session, but it's also I think that part of what we're trying to do. Well, I don't think I know. At least it's part of my agenda. It's really trying to teach executive skills, problem solving, time. Like there's 12 executive skills. I won't go into all of those, but I think that by constantly helping clients get the confidence to solve their own problems rather than, oh, I have to go to a person and, they tell me what to do and then I go away and either implement it or don't implement it. That the more that we can train them to think on their feet and to guide them through our questions, the more I think that they're learning executive skills and makes them feel empowered and more confident. So they'd be more committed to changing. They've taken ownership. Where else? They may discover that what they thought they needed when they walked in might not actually be what's most effective, the most effective way to get where they want to go. And they might actually, Joel, be more open to hearing about other options, other paths that they can take. And you would get more buy-in. They feel someone's really listening and interested in them as opposed to us imposing. And a certain portion of our customers only see us as a bank. These skills enable us to be seen as something more than a bank. And I talk about that where I think so many participants, it's almost like an entitlement mentality, and they only call us when they need money and they want to make a withdrawal. And I think that maybe a way of thinking about that is what we're doing with this is helping them make deposits. And so I think excellent. Okay, I am going to run back to or scroll back to one of my a slide. I just didn't know how far we would get. So anyway, that's why some of that came after. I'll reorganize it whenever I am sending out the PDF. One of the things I just want to talk about very, very, very briefly is just some of the stages of learning a new skill. One of the things that I think that sometimes happens is that, like when you're trying to learn a new thing, there are stages. And at first, initially, like especially I think with active listening, reflective listening, people feel awkward doing it because they feel like the other person is well, you're just repeating back everything I say. I mean, obviously I don't want to sound like a parrot, because that would grow old. But, as you put motivational interviewing in action, one skill at a time, because I think you have to master one, and it's like, okay, now I got affirmations down. Now I want to do open-ended questions. Now I got that down. I'm going to do reflective listening. I found this chart and I thought it might be just helpful to visualize what it takes to learn a new skill or a new way of doing things. And so there are 4 stages, and the first stage is called unconsciously incompetent or unconsciously unskilled. Like, because we don't know what we don't know. We're sometimes like we're inept at a thing and we're unaware that we're inept. And this is the initial stage of the learning process. It's where a person is just unaware of their lack of skill in an area. They may not even realize that there's a better way of doing a thing. So, like, let me give you an example. Imagine a professional who regularly gives presentations. And her colleagues find her graphics really confusing, her material to be disorganized, and her delivery a little disjointed. However, the presenter is unaware of those issues, so she's unconsciously unskilled. So that's stage one, not even aware. Stage two is where you are consciously unskilled. So now I know what I don't know. I know we start to learn this at a level when, like, suddenly, like, you become aware of how poorly you're doing something, and it shows you how much you have to learn. So like I think about that when my husband is telling me something and I have some advice. Like, I am very conscious of how unskilled I am sometimes when I have emotion behind it, of like using reflective listening with him, or making some affirmation. And I try to implement all of these skills in my real life, but sometimes it's like I'm consciously aware of the fact that I'm not using active listening and I should be. So it's that's where you become conscious of every move you make, and you're trying to do better, but you're aware of your ineptness. Then you move to stage three, which is consciously competent. You're trying the skills out, you're experimenting, you're practicing. You know now how to do the skill the right way, but you have to think about it and you have to work hard to do it. And so it's it's like it takes a lot more thought, I guess. And sometimes we still mess up, but we have to be conscientious about trying to do it. And then you become stage four, that's unconsciously competent, and that is the skill becomes easy. It's you are it becomes internalized. And so over time, it just becomes so natural that it's a part of you. So this to me is very similar, this like to practicing motivational interviewing. We all go through these stages. And then once you get to stage four, you can't remember how you used to do it, because this new way becomes the new normal and the new comfort zone. So even when you're doing active listening and you're hearing yourself and it's uncomfortable, it's what I'm saying is keep doing it. It's all natural. So and anyway, I see somebody else has to jump off for a next meeting, and I see that it's 3:28. I am going to open it up, see if there are any questions, comments, thoughts. As soon as we're done, I will send out the third. I have a homework exercise already uh, written, and I will send that out as well as the PDF. Any questions, comments, hopes, fears, dreams? That was doing that. And there we are.